I'm Nona van Tolberg for National Security News. South Africa is to send a mission to Washington in an effort to preserve its trade relations with the Trump administration. This initiative arises amid deteriorating relations between the two countries, which threatens South Africa's participation in the African Growth and Opportunity Act. There's increasing concern that sanctions may be imposed against the Ramaphosa government. In the second part of our interview with political analyst Dr. Piet Croukamp from the University of Johannesburg, he discusses the potential implications of these developments. So, what about his focus on South Africa? What are your views on that?
Yeah, I think we ended up, obviously the Israel thing put us on the map and it offends him. He's got a very, very close relationship, not only with Israel, but he also have an affinity to resolve the issue of Gaza, which he thinks that political power, raw political power can save that thing or solve that thing. And what you have to do is you just move 2 million people out, you fix up the place and you'll move them back and everybody will live happily ever after. Of course, that's a typical American expansionism type of idea. When they tried to export democracy to Libya, it didn't work. They tried to export to Iraq, it didn't work. That type of idea of exporting not only a system, but also a value system to another society has never worked. There's no history that it has worked. But he's still, being American, he still thinks that that's possible to do that. So obviously that's how we ended up on his radar. And we're still there because of that primarily. And now in the meantime, he's found all sorts of other reasons to, remember this diversity and inclusion and equity, which is one of the things that really pains him. It's one of the things that he really hates about America, especially about the Democratic Party, and especially about the European cultural and disposition that really supports feeds of that idea, that type of empathy and compassion in a system that comes at the expense of some people, and some people benefit more. He hates every moment of that. And obviously in South Africa, being where we've been in the past, our history, we cannot ignore that. In some other way, we have to resolve the inequality in society by recognizing that in the past, these divisions has been rooted in. We have to resolve them by designing policies and legislation to seek to bridge the divides between different communities. That is something that he really, really hates. And that's the second thing that came on his radar. And then you may think different, but we have other lunatics in South Africa that's equally as nuts as Donald Trump, who deliberately lie about legislation. The Expropriation Act, I've asked many a lawyer about it. I've spoken about, together with a lawyer a night or two ago on a platform. What AfriForum and Solidarity says about the Expropriation Act is simply not true. For starters, you cannot expropriate anything in terms of that act. You must use other legislation. That legislation is just it just provides us with a frame of reference, the rules and the regulations of how expropriation in the public interest should be done or should be conducted. Well, they managed to make that act a boogeyman, and as representative of this evil thing that Donald Trump doesn't believe in. And now we're really in his crosshairs, and from there, also AfriForum and Solidarity sold the idea to him and to Musk and to Peter Thiel and all the other guys around him. Lots of South Africans hang out there. That there's a very the crime that occurs in the rural areas, which very often impact farmers. That is a political agenda aimed at the persecution of white Afrikaner farmers. Again, it's not true. There's no stats, no data that confirms that. In fact, the research being done by Professor Zinn at UNISA clearly shows that as long as you have the high levels of crime, we kill 75 people a day every day in South Africa. The rapes are enormous. The violence are enormous. The gender-based violence. 3 children a day die in South Africa, get murdered. I'm not talking about dying. I'm talking about getting murdered in South Africa. Gun violence kills more children than almost anything else in South Africa. If you have that levels of crime, if you're white, if you live in a rural area, if you're far away from any form of protection, and there's the expectation that you have guns and money in your close proximity, that's exactly the dynamics that lead to what is quite often happening on farms. It's not aimed at farms. It's not aimed at farmers. It's part of a pattern of crime in South Africa. Unless we solve the crime in South Africa, in the general sense, we will not solve the problem of crime on farms. But AfriForum and Solidarity has managed to convince Trump that Afrikaners are being persecuted, the Afrikaner farmers are being persecuted. And this is where we are now. It's very possible that we will be kicked out of AGOA. Ironically, AfriForum went to America and asked them not to kick us out of AGOA. And the DA went there and asked them not to kick us out of AGOA. But I don't think they will be effective. If we really want to change Donald Trump's mind, we have to ask Ernie Els, Johan Rupert, and one or two people that plays golf with him to change his mind. Because he does play golf, and Gary Player, he plays golf with him and they have influence. If you talk about the transactional person, he will decide on a golf course what geopolitics he will follow in South Africa and Africa, rather than in a boardroom where there are lots of people around the table. So if the attitude of the Americans and Trump is going to change towards us, it will come from a very different direction than from, I think, AfriForum or the ANC. The ANC, by the way, I heard that they sent a delegation to Washington, led by Naledi Pandor. Are you nuts? Are you mad?
Yeah.
That's the one person that's being mentioned all the time for her pro-Palestinian stance. That's the one person that has met the people from Iran, a delegation from Iran in Iran. That's the one person that received a phone call, took a phone call from one of the one of the Hamas leadership. That's the one person that's being associated with everything that Donald Trump hates about South Africa's policy towards Iran. And just last week, we received another delegation from Iran in the Tule House. What are they thinking when they do things like that? So the ANC is looking for their own trouble. And they make it easy with Donald Trump, and they make it easy for AfriForum. And then, I think you've heard about it. There are now charges being laid against AfriForum for
treason.
That's exactly what AfriForum wants, because they know it will never stick. They know it may not even end up in court. But this idea of being a persecuted minority, exactly, there's the evidence now. As far as they're concerned, now they have the evidence for it too. And look, we will all pay the price for that. All South Africans. If the South African rand tanks as a consequence of the lack of trust in the currency, because of what Donald Trump is doing, kicking us out of AGOA, perhaps starting with sanctions against South Africa, tariffs against vehicle transport, vehicle export from South Africa, and fruit and vegetables and agricultural products. Once you start with that, it's likely that the rand will tank. If the rand tanks, inflation goes up. If inflation goes up, we have to respond with interest rates. There's nothing that impoverishes a middle class like high interest rates. Remember, we had 25% interest rate decade 3 ago. It impoverishes the middle class completely. The impact of that on South Africa, it's not quantifiable yet.
Phew, so what does South Africa do apart from stop doing stupid things?
Well, I don't know if it's possible to go and talk to the Trump regime and get them to have a change of heart. I don't think. We have to stay out of the crosshairs. We should get Gwede Mantashe not to say that we will keep our minerals and you can go away, or Naledi Pandor to go to America and make a pro-Israeli stance, or the ANC to invite Iran into the Tule House. If we can get them to stop those things, maybe we will disappear from the radar screen for a while. Because if Trump realizes that his volatile and hostile relationship with the Canadians and the Mexicans and the Europeans come at a massive price, because they will have inflation because of all these tariffs. And once they have, remember, they're also battling, as it is now, they battle with interest rates. They would like to go down. I mean, Trump, in his first week in office, he says the Federal Reserve must lower the interest rate. They will not lower the interest rate because some politicians said so. There must be the conditions prevailing in the economy for them to lower it. So it looks like it's possible that there might be a small recession set in. It's possible that inflation will go up. It's possible that the interest rates will go up. And once that type of variables have an impact on the domestic economy in America, maybe his focus will move there and away from us. We must just get him to not to look in our direction, because there's nothing we can say or do to change his mind. We must get him to be involved somewhere else and forget a little bit about us.
Dr. Piet Croukamp, thanks so much.
Thank you. Lovely to see you. Thanks. Bye-bye.